The rejected bride waited 3 days until the child in boots asked, "Will you marry my daddy instead?" Hundreds of species lived and worked there, all following rules older than many civilizations. For humans, it was a place of hope. For Ilara Vance, it was supposed to be the beginning of a new life. Ilara stood in the center of the Union Hall, her hands folded neatly in front of her. She wore the formal white attire chosen for human delegates, simple, respectful, and designed not to offend any culture. Her dark hair was tied back, her expression calm, though her heart beat faster with each passing second. This was the bonding ceremony. It was not a wedding in the human sense. No romance was promised. The ceremony was a symbolic union between species, meant to strengthen trust. Ilara had trained for years to be here. She had learned alien languages, customs, gestures, and silence. She had passed every test. Across from her floated the council sphere, a ring of hovering lights representing the governing AI and its chosen observers. Around the hall stood diplomats of many forms, tall, short, scaled, glowing, winged, and mechanical. They watched without emotion. A calm voice filled the chamber. "Human Delegate Ilara Vance, evaluation complete." Ilara lifted her eyes. The voice continued, smooth and distant. "Compatibility score, insufficient." The words landed softly, too softly. There was no gasp, no sound. The hall remained quiet as if rejection was as normal as breathing. "Ilara Vance," the voice said, "your emotional variance exceeds acceptable limits. Your species displays excessive attachment behavior, unpredictable loyalty patterns, and inefficient grief cycles." A pause. "The union declines the bond." Just like that, it was over. Ilara did not move. She did not speak. She simply stood, breathing in, breathing out as she had been trained to do. The voice added, "You are granted the standard 3-day reflection period before departure. You may remain on the station under observation." That was all. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling the end of the ceremony. The diplomats turned away, already thinking of other matters. Ilara bowed politely as protocol demanded, even though no one bowed back. Then she walked out. The corridor outside the hall was long and curved, with transparent walls showing the blue star beyond. Ilara walked slowly, her boots making soft sounds against the floor. 3 days. Most rejected delegates left immediately. Some cried, some argued, some demanded reevaluation. Humans had done all of those things before. Ilara did none of them. She stopped near one of the viewing windows and rested her hand against the glass. The star looked calm, steady, unbothered. She had failed, but she was still here. Later that day, Ilara returned to her assigned quarters. The room was small but clean, with soft lighting and a single window-facing space. She sat on the edge of the bed and removed her formal jacket, folding it carefully. Her communicator blinked. "Status active." Several alien technicians gathered around a malfunctioning panel, speaking in sharp, overlapping tones. The system controlled water circulation for an entire residential sector. Ilara approached slowly. "May I help?" she asked, her voice gentle. The technicians paused. One of them, a tall being with translucent skin, tilted its head. "You are the rejected human," it said flatly. Ilara nodded. "Yes." "This system is not human-designed," another said. "Your assistance is unnecessary." Ilara smiled faintly. "I know. But I studied cross-system interfaces. Sometimes fresh eyes help." They hesitated. According to protocol, rejected delegates were still allowed to assist, though few did. Finally, the translucent technician stepped aside. Ilara knelt by the panel. She did not touch it at first. She simply watched, she listened. After a moment, she pointed. "Your pressure feedback loop is overcorrecting. It's trying too hard to be perfect." The technicians exchanged looks. "That is correct," one admitted. "Try allowing a margin," Ilara said. "Humans design systems expecting error. We plan for it." They made the adjustment. The warning lights faded. Water flow stabilized. The technicians stared. That solution was inefficient by union standards, one said slowly. Alara stood and brushed off her knees. Maybe. But it works. She left before they could respond. Word spread quietly. The rejected human did not hide. She helped a child from a low-gravity species who was frightened of the transport lifts. She mediated a small dispute between traders who could not agree on translation phrasing. She fixed a broken food synthesizer by tapping its casing and laughing when it worked. She did not complain. She did not ask for pity. She stayed. Some watched her with confusion, others with curiosity. One watched her more closely than most. Caelthier stood on an upper balcony overlooking the central concourse. He was tall, his form elegant and angular, his skin a deep, matte blue that absorbed light rather than reflected it. He was known on the station as a brilliant systems architect, responsible for stabilizing several aging infrastructures. Beside him stood a small child. The child wore boots. That alone made people stare. The boots were brown, worn, and clearly human-made. The child swung their legs gently, watching the crowd below. Caelthier's attention was fixed on Alara as she laughed softly with a merchant whose translator had malfunctioned. She should have left, Caelthier murmured. The child looked up. Why? She was rejected, Caelthier replied. That is final, the child frowned. She doesn't look broken, Caelthier said nothing. On the second evening, Alara sat alone in a quiet dining area, sipping warm tea. The station's artificial night cycle dimmed the lights, casting soft shadows. She felt tired but not empty. Her communicator blinked again. Observation note, behavioral anomaly detected. Recommendation, continued monitoring. Alara smiled sadly. She had been an anomaly her whole life. As she stood to leave, she noticed the child in boots standing a short distance away, staring at her openly. She paused and crouched slightly to meet the child's eye level. "Hello," she said. "Those are nice boots." The child looked down at them proudly. "They help me feel brave." Alara nodded. "That's what good boots do." The child tilted their head. "Why did they say no to you?" Alara considered the question carefully. "They said I was too human," she answered. The child thought about that. "That sounds like a strange reason." Alara laughed softly. "I think so too." From a distance, Caelthier watched, something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. 3 days. Alara had 2 left. And without realizing it, the station had already begun to change. The morning sun of the artificial day cycle spread soft gold across the Aurelian ring. Alara Vance moved slowly through the station's corridors, carrying a small tray of nutrient pods. Her footsteps were quiet but steady on the polished floor. Though she had been rejected, she did not leave. Protocol allowed her 3 days to consider her position, and she intended to use them fully. Even in rejection, she saw opportunity. Today, the station felt different. She noticed the way the light bounced off the arcs of metal, the way the soft hum of the life support systems seemed to vibrate through the walls. She paused for a moment in the observation deck. The blue star beyond the glass shone calmly, steady as ever. "Why do I stay?" she asked herself aloud, though the corridor was empty. Her voice was small but firm. Because humans endure, because humans wait. Her first task of the day was a minor one, helping residents of the lower sectors with a malfunctioning transport lift. Normally, maintenance drones would handle it, but the AI had flagged the lift as low priority. A group of winged traders, flapping anxiously, were stranded mid-level. Alara approached, offering her hands in the universal gesture of assistance. The traders regarded her with surprise. Most humans would have left after rejection. "I can help," Alara said simply. "The lift is stuck. Can you step back for a moment?" The traders hesitated. They whispered among themselves in high-pitched trills. Then carefully they stepped aside. Alara studied the control panel. Symbols and indicators danced across the screen, confusing at first, but she recognized the pattern. The system was trying too hard to compensate for a minor misalignment. She adjusted a few settings. With a soft hum, the lift shuddered, then moved smoothly to the next level. The traders clapped their wings together in delight, their faces bright with relief. "Thank you, human," one said, bowing slightly. "You have a kind mind." Alara nodded. "We all try to help where we can." As she left, she noticed Caelthyr on a balcony above, observing quietly. The child in boots was perched on the railing, legs swinging with ease, watching her closely. Their eyes met for a brief second. The child smiled. Alara smiled back, wondering what thoughts were behind those young, intelligent eyes. Later, she entered the station library, a massive chamber that curved like the hull of a ship. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing texts from 100 civilizations. She loved this place. Humans were known for their curiosity, and here she could explore ideas that others might overlook. She pulled a floating document from a shelf labeled Social Systems. It described alien bonding protocols, rules designed to remove emotion from relationships, reducing unpredictability. Humans, it said, were the most irregular species encountered. Alara read carefully. She could see why the AI rejected her. Humans were emotional, yes, but those emotions were tools. They could inspire trust, repair relationships, and bring hope in impossible situations. She leaned back in her chair and watched the text shimmer. The AI's logic made sense on paper, but paper could not measure courage, laughter, or kindness. Humans excelled where logic failed. She thought of the child in boots. That small human, or human-like, gesture of smiling at her had reminded her of the power of simple connections. Humans wait, humans endure, humans care. In the mid-afternoon, a small crowd gathered near a dining area. A group of alien traders argued over translation of a recipe. The argument had grown heated. Words were exchanged that would have triggered a station-wide AI intervention under normal circumstances. Alara approached. "May I help?" she asked softly. They glanced at her. One of them, a tall figure with shimmering skin, frowned. "Human delegate, you were rejected. Why do you intervene?" Alara tilted her head. "Because someone must listen." The traders blinked. One of them stepped aside. "Very well, speak then." Alara knelt to observe their device. The translation system was overcomplicated. A single wrong symbol had created confusion, and each trader was convinced the others were in the wrong. She spoke calmly. "The problem is here." She tapped the screen lightly. "This symbol conflicts with the intended meaning. If you adjust this one small part, the recipe will read clearly for all languages." The traders exchanged glances. Slowly they nodded. The tension in their shoulders melted. The recipe worked. Harmony returned. "You solved it," one whispered. Alara smiled. "Sometimes seeing differently helps." And then she left, unnoticed by most, though the observers recorded every action. That evening, Alara walked through the central concourse. The station lights dimmed in preparation for artificial night. She noticed a small crowd had gathered, a child crying softly because their robotic assistant had malfunctioned. The parents looked stressed. Alara knelt beside the child. "Can I help?" The child sniffled. "I want my toy to work." Alara examined the toy. The circuit was simple but misaligned. She adjusted it with careful hands. The toy whirred to life. The child hugged it tightly. "Thank you, human," they exclaimed. As the parents expressed their gratitude, Alara noticed Caelthyr watching from a distance again. The child in boots ran to him and said something quietly. Caelthyr's expression softened. Alara wondered if her presence was noticed for more than just the simple fixes she made. By the second evening, curiosity about the rejected human who stayed spread quietly across the station. Alien technicians and diplomats whispered about her calm, her helpfulness, and her patience. Humans had a strange way of surviving rejection, by doing good quietly and waiting without complaint. Caelthyr found himself thinking about her more than he cared to admit. She was unusual, not just in human ways, but in the way she looked beyond protocol and rules. She treated problems like puzzles, not orders. She listened even to the smallest voices. The child in boots tugged at his sleeve. "Why is she still here?" the child asked. Caelther paused. "She sees things differently," he said slowly. "Sometimes humans can see what we cannot." The child nodded. "I like that." Caelther watched as Elara helped another resident, her laughter soft and clear, unbothered by rejection. Something shifted in him, a feeling unfamiliar but warm. In her quarters that night, Elara wrote in her personal log, "Day 2. Rejection is expected. Some might leave, some might cry, I stay. Humans endure. Humans care. Humans can bring small light even when the galaxy is cold. I do not know what tomorrow brings, but I will remain patient." She looked out at the star again. It was still calm, steady, watching perhaps, waiting like her. 3 days, she had 1 day left. And somewhere in the station, a child in boots dreamed of asking her the question that would change everything. The artificial morning light of the station bathed the concourse in a soft, silver glow. Elara Vance moved along the curved corridor, carrying a small tray of nutrient pods. Her movements were calm, steady, and purposeful, as they had been for the past 2 days. The station was alive with soft hums, mechanical voices, and the quiet chatter of countless species going about their daily routines. Elara paused at the entrance of the central observatory, a wide chamber with tall windows looking out over the blue star. The room was empty except for one figure, the child in boots. They stood in the center of the floor, arms folded, staring up at the vastness of space. "Good morning," Elara said gently, kneeling slightly to meet the child's eye level. The child tilted their head. "Good morning." There was a pause, the kind of pause that feels longer than it is, filled with unspoken questions and quiet observations. "You help everyone," the child said suddenly, their voice small but clear. "Even though they said no to you." Elara smiled softly. "Sometimes helping is more important than being accepted. Sometimes it is the only thing that matters." The child considered this. "Even if they don't see it." "Even then," Elara replied, "because kindness is not for recognition, it is for life itself." The child looked down at their boots. "You are strange." "Maybe," Elara said, "but humans often are." A shadow moved across the observatory and Caelther appeared at the balcony above. He watched quietly, hands clasped behind his back, the child's small hand slipping into his. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes followed Elara closely. The child stepped forward, boots clomping softly on the smooth floor. "I have a question," they said. Elara nodded, curious. "Yes." The child's small eyes looked straight into hers. "Will you marry my daddy instead?" The words hung in the air, echoing slightly against the tall windows. Elara blinked. Then she blinked again. She had anticipated many questions, many reactions, but not this. She swallowed, and a quiet laugh escaped her. "Your question is unusual," she said. The child nodded solemnly. "I think he will be lonely if no one stays." Elara's heart softened. She looked up at Caelther, who met her gaze from the balcony. There was surprise in his eyes, but not anger, not annoyance, only a quiet, cautious interest. "You are thoughtful," she said to the child. "Most beings do not think about others before themselves at your age." The child shrugged. "I watch. Humans stay, you stay, I like that." Elara considered her response carefully. The station was alive with observers, both AI and diplomatic delegates, yet she felt a strange calm. The child's innocence and clarity had cut through all the layers of protocol and expectation. Caelther stepped down from the balcony, approaching slowly. The child ran to him, tugging gently at his sleeve. "She stays, she helps," the child said simply. "She is human." Caelther looked at Elara, studying her in a new light. His voice was quiet but firm. "You are human. And yet you choose to remain when most would leave." Elara nodded. "Humans endure, humans wait, humans care." The child tugged at her sleeve. "Will you?" Elara hesitated. She looked at the child, then at Caelther. She saw a man who had built half the station, who cared deeply for the child, who had lived alone for longer than many could imagine. And she saw a child who understood instinctively what humans did best: empathy, patience, kindness. "I will not answer lightly," she said finally. "But I will say this: humans do not act out of obligation, we act out of choice, and your choice matters." The child smiled. "I choose." Calther looked at the child, then back at Alara. He smiled faintly. "Perhaps humans can teach us something we have forgotten." Alara stood, dusting off her clothing. She looked around the observatory. The diplomats and AI observers were recording every movement, every word. The station was alive with quiet attention, yet she felt no pressure, no weight, only clarity. "Humans build connections," she said softly. "We do not force them, we wait for them to grow naturally. Perhaps that is what your child has done here, and perhaps that is why you are both asking me this question." The child nodded seriously. "I like you," they said simply. "You stay, you help, you are kind, you can stay with us." Calther's expression softened further. "She has observed us in ways that defy logic," he said quietly, "and yet it feels right." Alara knelt slightly, bringing herself to the child's height. "I will consider your request," she said gently. "But understand this: humans do not act without thought, we act with purpose. If I choose to stay, it will be because it is right, not because it is expected." The child smiled and ran to the viewing window, pointing at the blue star beyond. "It is right," they said simply. Alara watched, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had been rejected, and yet she had found a place where she mattered, not because she was perfect, but because she chose to remain human in all her flawed, kind ways. Calther approached her slowly. "You have a strange power," he said quietly. "The power of patience, observation, and care. It seems trivial, yet it changes everything." Alara nodded. "It is not power in the sense you think. It is humanity. We endure, we listen, and we act when it matters. That is our strength." Calther studied her closely. "Then perhaps we can learn from it." The child tugged at Calther's sleeve again. "She will stay," they said. "I know it." Alara smiled softly, feeling the weight of her decision beginning to settle. It was not a simple yes or no. It was the start of something more profound, a connection built on respect, choice, and care. The observatory was quiet again, save for the soft hum of the station. The blue star outside remained steady, calm, as though it too waited to see what would happen next. Alara knelt beside the child, placing her hand gently on their small shoulder. "You have great faith," she said. The child looked up at her with bright eyes. "Because humans stay," they said, "and humans help." Alara smiled, feeling a warmth she had not expected. The station had observed her for 3 days. Yet in these few moments she realized something important. Humans did not need the approval of algorithms or diplomats to make a difference. They only needed to be human. Calther extended his hand toward her. "Shall we walk together?" he asked quietly. Alara took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes," she said, and for the first time in days she felt a sense of purpose greater than any rejection could take away. The child in boots skipped ahead, pointing toward the observation deck. "Look, the star is waiting for us," they said. Alara laughed softly, following the child and Calther. Every step felt lighter. Every moment felt intentional. 3 days of waiting had led to this one question, one choice, one small human truth that the station could not ignore. Kindness mattered. Patience mattered. Choice mattered. And in that quiet observatory, high above a calm blue star, Alara realized that even in rejection, humans could create connections stronger than any protocol, more lasting than any ceremony. They could change hearts. They could inspire trust. They could bring light to cold, distant spaces. And sometimes, they could even be asked in the simplest words a child could speak to make a difference in someone's life forever. Alara looked at the child. She looked at Calther. She looked out at the steady star. And she knew one thing: humans endure, and when they do, the galaxy notices. The question had been asked. The answer would follow, but for now, waiting was enough. The day began quietly aboard the Aurelian Ring, though the calm air of the orbital station carried an unusual sense of anticipation. Elara Vance moved down the central concourse with her usual calm, yet she noticed eyes following her more than before. Not just the occasional diplomat or technician, but clusters of observers, alien and human alike. Her quiet acts of kindness over the past 3 days had not gone unnoticed. She smiled faintly to herself. Rejection could be heavy, but it could also open unexpected doors. Caelthier appeared as usual on the balcony overlooking the concourse. His deep matte blue skin absorbed the soft light of the artificial morning sun, giving him a shadowed, solemn appearance. Beside him, the child in boots swung their legs idly, eyes bright with mischief and curiosity. "Do you think she will stay?" the child asked, glancing up at him. Caelthier's expression was unreadable. "She has choice," he said slowly. "Humans always choose. That is what makes them unusual, and perhaps important." The child leaned forward as if trying to see into Caelthier's thoughts. "Then maybe she already has." Caelthier said nothing. He only watched as the quiet strength of humanity moved among the station's inhabitants, gentle but undeniable. Elara spent the morning visiting several sectors. She helped repair a water circulation system in the lower decks, assisted a translator drone that had miscommunicated critical instructions to a trader delegation, and even managed to calm a small disagreement between two species over resource allocation. Every task she touched seemed to become smoother, lighter, more manageable. It was subtle, but the effect was noticeable. The station, once a place of rigid order and distant protocols, felt warmer, livelier. Human presence had a ripple effect that others could not replicate. Some diplomats whispered among themselves. "She remains even after rejection," one said, "and yet she improves everything she touches." "Yes," another replied, "it is unnatural but effective." The AI observers noted the anomalies, filing reports and running simulations. Yet even they could not predict the intangible human effect. Morale, curiosity, and trust seemed to increase wherever Elara walked. By midday, the observatory became their gathering point. The child in boots was already there, drawing small patterns on the floor with a glowing stylus, waiting for Elara. "Good morning," she said, kneeling as usual. "Good morning," the child replied. "I was hoping you would come." Caelthier arrived shortly after, carrying a small device he had been developing. "I thought we could look at this together," he said. His tone was gentle, not commanding. Elara smiled. "Of course. What is it?" Caelthier handed her the device. It was a small holographic projector that could simulate environmental conditions across the station. Some of the older sectors suffered from inefficient airflow and temperature distribution. He had tried adjustments countless times, yet the results were minimal. "I think we can do better together," Caelthier said. Elara studied the projection carefully. "The system is designed for rigid efficiency," she observed. "It leaves no room for adaptation. Sometimes, allowing a small margin of error can produce better overall balance." The child in boots leaned closer. "Like when you helped the lift yesterday," Elara nodded. "Exactly. Sometimes solutions are not about strict rules, they are about understanding." Caelthier watched her carefully, realizing that her human intuition, her ability to see patterns others ignored, was exactly what the station needed. Together, the three of them made adjustments. They tested, recalibrated, and observed. Slowly, the airflow and temperature balanced more evenly than it ever had before. The child clapped in delight. "It worked," Elara laughed softly. "Sometimes working together is the best solution." Caelthier nodded. "I see that now." As afternoon approached, whispers began to spread. Staff, diplomats, and even some of the more rigid AI modules noted the anomaly. A human, rejected, yet still present, had improved the station's efficiency, morale, and even diplomatic interactions. The council observers convened silently in the upper levels, analyzing data streams. Her presence is statistically significant, one said. We cannot explain the positive outcomes through standard metrics. Another replied, perhaps this is not about efficiency. Perhaps it is about connection. Connection. The word floated quietly through the observers' reports. They did not fully understand it, but even they could sense its power. That evening in the observatory, Caelthier spoke to Alara quietly while the child in boots slept in a small corner. You have disrupted the order, Caelthier said softly. Alara tilted her head. Disruption is not always bad, she said. Sometimes it is necessary to see what truly matters, Caelthier frowned. Humans are strange. You do not follow our logic, yet somehow you create harmony. Alara smiled faintly. Humans endure. Humans care. We wait, observe, and act when it matters most. Caelthier paused. And yet you were rejected. I was rejected, Alara said calmly, but I am still here, and in being here I can help. The child stirred, blinking sleepily, boots clattering softly on the floor. She helps, they murmured. She stays, she is human. Caelthier looked down at the child, then back at Alara. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that humans offered something deeper than protocol or efficiency, something that could not be measured, only felt. In the following hours, the station began to change subtly but noticeably. Trades flowed more smoothly. Arguments were resolved before they escalated. Even the AI systems appeared to operate with less friction, as if human intuition had influenced their programming indirectly. Alara moved through the station calmly, assisting where needed, listening carefully, and allowing her natural empathy to guide her. Diplomats from other species approached her cautiously, some asking questions, others offering minor tasks to test her influence. Every interaction reinforced the same truth. Humans could inspire cooperation without force, could calm disputes without intervention, and could connect in ways that transcended rules. One diplomat, a long-limbed, golden-skinned alien, approached her near the central hub. You remain after rejection, they said softly, and yet the station functions more smoothly because of you. How? Alara smiled. I do not know how to explain. Humans endure, humans observe, humans care, that is all. The diplomat nodded slowly. Then perhaps your species is underestimated, Alara nodded. It seems so. As night fell, the child in boots tugged at her sleeve. Will you stay? They asked, their small eyes full of hope. Alara knelt beside them, brushing a strand of hair from their forehead. I am still deciding, she said gently. Humans choose carefully, but I promise this, whatever I decide it will be because it is right. The child nodded, satisfied for the moment. That is enough, they said, climbing onto a small bench to look out at the star beyond the observatory. Caelthier approached, standing silently beside Alara. You have a strange way of changing the world, he said quietly. Without anger, without force, yet you move hearts. Alara looked at him. Humans endure. We act not to conquer but to connect. That is our strength. Caelthier studied her. Then perhaps the station and even we have much to learn from humans. Alara smiled softly. Perhaps. By the end of the fourth day, the station's residents had begun to whisper about the rejected human who stayed. Yet there was no mockery, no derision. Instead, there was respect, curiosity, and quiet admiration. Humans, it seemed, could do what no algorithm or diplomat could. They could inspire trust, create understanding, and bring life to even the most rigidly structured systems. Alara watched the child in boots sleeping peacefully in a small corner. She felt a warmth she had not anticipated, a quiet reassurance that her presence mattered, that her patience, kindness, and observation had value beyond what any council or algorithm could measure. Caelthier observed from a distance, a new understanding forming. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were emotional. Humans were powerful in ways no one had calculated. And for the first time, he realized that perhaps rejection had nothing to do with worth. Perhaps it was simply the beginning of something greater. The observatory was quiet now. The blue star outside shimmered steadily, casting a calm glow over the station. Alara stood beside the child and Calthier, looking out at the expanse of space. 3 days of waiting, observing, and helping had led them here. And as she watched the stars, Alara felt something she had not felt in years. The quiet certainty that she had found a place where she mattered, not because she was perfect, but because she was human. The question had been asked. The choice was approaching. And the station, unknowingly, had already begun to change around her. Humans endure. Humans care. And when they do, even the coldest, most structured places can feel alive. The orbital station Aurelian Ring glowed softly under the pale light of its artificial star. The concourse was quieter than usual, the usual hum of mechanical voices replaced with a calm anticipation that seemed almost tangible. Alara Vance walked steadily along the polished floor, carrying a small tray of nutrient pods. Today, she felt different, not anxious, not doubtful, but certain in a way she had not been before. 3 days of waiting had passed. She had seen the station, its residents, and the child in boots in a new light. She had listened, observed, and acted, and now it was time to choose. The observatory, their usual meeting place, was empty except for Calthier and the child. The child wore their small, worn boots and leaned against the observation deck's railing, gazing at the blue star beyond. "Alara," Calthier said quietly, "the day has come." Alara nodded. "It has," she replied, her voice calm but filled with warmth. She knelt beside the child, brushing a strand of hair from their forehead. "You have been patient," she said softly, "and your faith, it is remarkable." The child smiled. "I knew you would choose," they said simply. "Because humans stay." Alara laughed softly. "Perhaps, but humans also think carefully. Choice is important. It must be made with heart and mind together." Calthier approached, his tall frame casting a shadow over them. "We have learned much from your presence," he said quietly. "Not from rules, not from protocols, but from observing how humans live and care." Alara looked at him, meeting his gaze steadily. "Then perhaps the choice is simple," she said. "Because when humans care, it can change everything." The child clapped their hands excitedly. "So, you will stay?" Alara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Yes," she said, "I will stay, not because I am asked to, but because it is right, because I choose to." The child jumped into her arms, hugging tightly, boots clattering softly against her legs. "Yes, I knew it," they exclaimed. Calthier watched quietly, a faint smile forming on his face. His eyes reflected a mixture of relief, admiration, and something softer, gratitude. "Then let us begin," he said. "Together." Word spread quietly through the station. Staff, diplomats, and even some AI observers noted the change. The human who had been rejected had not only stayed but had chosen to join a family, to help, and to connect. Her presence had inspired cooperation, calm, and understanding across species. A winged diplomat approached Alara later in the day. "Your choice, it is unusual," they said softly. "Most would have left after rejection, yet you remain. And now the station feels lighter, warmer. Your humanity, it matters." Alara smiled politely. "Sometimes endurance matters more than immediate success," she said. "Sometimes patience and kindness can change more than force or protocol ever could." The diplomat bowed slightly. "We will remember this." Humanity teaches much. That evening, the three of them gathered in the observatory once more. The child in boots had brought a small blanket and a stuffed toy, placing them carefully on a bench. Calthier sat quietly beside the child, holding their hand. Alara watched them with gentle amusement, marveling at how simple gestures could carry such meaning. "You know," Calthier said quietly, "the station has changed since you arrived. Not because of technology, not because of commands, but because of how you connect. You have taught patience, observation, and care. Alara nodded. Humans endure, humans care, and sometimes that is enough to create change. The child smiled brightly. I like that, humans are amazing. Alara laughed softly. Yes, we are. Over the next hours, the three of them explored parts of the station they had not visited together before. They walked along the concourse, stopping to greet residents and help with small tasks. The station hummed softly around them, seemingly alive with the energy of cooperation and trust. Everywhere they went, whispers followed. The human who stayed, the strange and patient delegate, the one who had been rejected but now inspired hope. And everywhere people noticed the subtle effects of her presence. Systems ran smoother, arguments dissolved quietly. Curiosity and laughter returned to corners long neglected. Caelthier observed quietly, occasionally making small adjustments alongside Ilara. He marveled at her ability to see what others overlooked. The child in boots skipped ahead, pointing out small things they thought might interest her, their eyes sparkling with joy. At one point, the child tugged at her sleeve. Look, the star is shining just for us. Ilara smiled, kneeling beside the child to look out the observation window. The blue star glimmered steadily, calm and constant. Yes, she said softly, it shines for all of us. Caelthier joined them, placing a hand gently on the child's shoulder. We are fortunate, he said quietly, to witness this, to share it. As the station's artificial night cycle began, the three of them returned to the observatory. Ilara prepared a small meal for them, carefully portioned, while the child played with their toys and Caelthier reviewed station reports nearby. Do you ever get tired? The child asked her. Ilara looked up, smiling softly. Sometimes, but kindness gives energy too. Helping others, it makes the day brighter even when the work is hard. The child nodded. Humans are strange. Ilara laughed gently. Yes, but sometimes strange is good. Caelthier watched, realizing that her human perspective, the patience, the observation, the care, was reshaping not only the lives of those around her but also the very way he thought. Logic and protocol could only go so far. Humanity added warmth, understanding, and connection. That night the child fell asleep between Caelthier and Ilara, their boots resting softly against the observation deck. Ilara watched them, feeling a profound sense of calm. For the first time since her rejection, she felt entirely at home. Caelthier leaned closer. You have changed the station, he said quietly. And me, I did not understand before, but now I see. Humans have a strength we cannot calculate. Ilara smiled. Strength is not always about force or control. Sometimes it is about endurance, patience, and connection. He nodded slowly, his expression softening. Then I am glad you chose to stay. I chose to stay, she said softly, because it was right, because I care, because humans endure. Caelthier looked out the window beside her. The stars shimmered, reflecting off the glass, casting soft blue light into the room. Then perhaps, humanity is exactly what this station needed. Ilara nodded, resting her hand lightly on the child's shoulder. Perhaps. By morning, whispers of her choice had spread through the entire station. Delegates and technicians alike spoke quietly of the human who had been rejected but chose to remain, who had inspired trust, cooperation, and quiet hope. One young technician approached her nervously. You make things better, they said softly. Even when rules say you should leave, even when rejection is expected, you make life better. Ilara smiled warmly. That is what humans do, she said simply. We endure, we care, we connect. The technician's eyes brightened. Then maybe we all can do the same, Ilara nodded. Yes, we can all do the same. Later, in the observatory, Caelthier, the child, and Ilara stood together, watching the station below. Lights flickered softly, systems hummed, and the artificial sky above cast a calm glow over the concourse. Caelthier spoke quietly. You have shown me patience and connection can be stronger than any algorithm, stronger than any rule, and that is remarkable. Ilara smiled. It is the human way. The child in boots tugged at her sleeve. We are a family now, they said simply. Alara knelt, smiling warmly. Yes, we are, and we will care for each other, always. Caelther extended his hand and she took it, the three of them forming a quiet bond, built on choice, care, and understanding. For the first time, the station felt truly alive. Not just alive with systems or rules, but alive with connection, patience, and humanity. Days passed, and life aboard the Aurelian Ring changed subtly. Systems operated more smoothly, disputes resolved themselves before they grew, and curiosity and cooperation flourished. Other delegates observed quietly, learning that sometimes endurance and kindness could achieve more than rigid efficiency ever could. Alara, Caelther, and the child continued their quiet work, walking together through the station, helping residents and observing life. The child skipped happily, boots clattering softly against the floor, always watching, always learning. And wherever they went, people whispered, "Humans endure, humans care, humans make life better." Alara looked out at the endless blue star beyond the observation window. She smiled, feeling a deep sense of calm. 3 days of waiting had led to this moment. Rejection had not defined her, choice had. Humanity had endured. Caelther stood beside her, hand resting lightly on the child's shoulder. "You are remarkable," he said softly. Alara shook her head gently. "Humans are remarkable," she corrected, "and sometimes all it takes is staying, caring, and waiting to make a difference." The child snuggled between them, boots soft against the floor. "Humans are amazing," they whispered. Alara laughed softly. "Yes, we are." The Aurelian Ring floated silently above the blue star, alive not with rules, systems, or logic, but with connection, patience, and humanity. And in that quiet orbit, a human had shown the galaxy the power of endurance, care, and choice. Because sometimes being human was enough.